So it was number 2 against number 5. And all we heard, Jess, all week was Notre Dame shouldn't have been a preseason number 5. 17.5-point underdogs. They're going to get rolled in this game. And here was Notre Dame, played exactly the way they needed to. Take the air out of the ball. I mean, they only ran 48 plays, but try and control the clock. Try and keep Ohio State off the field. They had the lead at halftime, had the lead into the third quarter, and then it was basically two drives, one of which all you could do is stand up and applaud Ohio State when they went 95 yards in like 14 plays in like 7 minutes. I mean, that's where one side of the ball has to step up, and it was Ohio State's offense and unfortunately not Notre Dame's defense. But Notre Dame ends up losing by 11, 21-10 in that one. And I know there are no moral victories, but I think a lot of Notre Dame fans were very fearful of a very ugly outcome in this game.
Well, especially after the Georgia-Oregon game, because, you said, Oregon didn't even have a dog in that fight, and they had a similar point spread before the game. I think the last I saw, Ohio State and Notre Dame went down to 16. So Notre Dame did cover the spread. And Mike, you bring up an important point, which is moral victories, because after the Cotton Bowl or, the Orange Bowl, whatever game Notre Dame is in against Clemson or Alabama or whoever, and everyone says there's no moral victories. Yes, that's true. But in a regular season game against the number 2 team in the country, there are moral victories because the committee looks at quality losses as a metric for the playoffs. Yes. So we don't know what Notre Dame will do the rest of the season, but say they do win out most of their games or all of their games, losing by 11 points in week 1 looks pretty good. And it's not as good as winning the game, but I do have to say, like, if you're a Notre Dame fan, you can feel a little relieved that it wasn't an embarrassing blowout like a lot of people were predicting. It wasn't an 18-point, margin of victory for Ohio State, 18 points or higher. Like, it was, Notre Dame was up with them. I think, like you said, they kind of just lacked those explosive plays. They didn't have a drive like Ohio State had in the second half where they were able to really attack with the football. But the defense played great. And I think, there's a lot to be excited about for the rest of the season.
Well, listen, we know Ohio State is a great team and they'll get better because it was week 1. Both these teams will look different in 4 to 5 weeks and maybe really different in 10 weeks. Notre Dame has, I think, a lot more room to grow and get better because Ohio State is already a really good to great team without question. They are. And Jigba, their great wide receiver, gets hurt in this game, so he didn't play much. So hopefully he's going to be okay because if you're a Notre Dame fan, you want Ohio State obviously to run the table. Yeah. And that makes it a great loss because this is, and you're right, well, if you want to put it in the moral category, but it's in the realistic category, the reality category of the 13-person committee when they look back. So say Oregon runs the table and Notre Dame runs the table. Oregon got smoked 49-3. That's what the committee looks back on, where Notre Dame was leading a game and ended up losing by 11 to Ohio State. And Notre Dame obviously has, the North Carolinas, the BYU, then Clemson, which is another great defense, and USC as well. I'll say it right now. If Notre Dame runs the table, and I don't know if they will, but if they run the table, outside of there being 4 undefeated Power Fives, Notre Dame's going to be in.
Yeah.
Notre Dame will be in the Final Four if they run the table and there aren't 4 undefeated. It's because of as long as, again, those teams, Ohio State win, they could beat 3 conference champs. Ohio State in the Big Ten, USC in the Pac-12, at least for another year if USC does that, and Clemson in the ACC. So that's a strong resume. And I know I'm jumping ahead 11 weeks now, but that's what this game meant. If Notre Dame got blown out like Oregon did, you almost could basically write the season off.